now on the matter of state capture manifested in land grabbing by politically exposed persons, particularly in this regime. A campaign started by Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa and has led to a number of policies, we are being told. And he's also promoting a bill to stop politically exposed persons from acquiring public lands. Let's listen to a brief interaction that occurred in respect of the subject and come to the studio.
Today, unlike most of our compatriots on the continent, lands in our country are largely owned by these two kings, clans, and families. Over the years, however, governments have acquired some of these lands either by purchase, lease, gift, compulsory acquisition, vesting, or through some other modes. These are the lands referred to as the public lands of Ghana, which government has direct control over. Just as governments have been acquiring lands since the inception of our republic, every government, without exception, has granted some of these public lands to private entities for various developmental purposes. Unfortunately, some people have packaged some of these lands, which were granted to private developers decades ago, and presented them as evidence of what they have termed, quote, state capture, end quote. The ministry has had to issue press statements to correct some of these misinformations. We set up a team. We went into negotiations with Achimota Forest because we were concerned about the ecological integrity of the forest, and we wanted a buffer. We wanted a buffer between what the Achimota Forest, the old family will have, and what will now constitute today's Achimota Forest. And we were able to negotiate a reduction of 100 acres out of the 362 acres which had been cast in iron by previous governments, and the current administration had been bound legally by previous governments for the release of 362 acres of the Achimota Forest.
Right. So let's begin with Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, who has been on this crusade. And in front of him on the desk, he's actually occupied the front of Nanaya as well.
Apologies.
No, you're welcome.
It's a flood that is coming, not from the Akosobo Dam. It's coming my way. And I want my producers to zoom the camera to it. I want to show you something. Beside him, there are two boxes of documents. So in this 1 hour, I don't know how I'm going to be able to restrain him, but I'll try. Mm-hmm. So you had to hold a press conference after Abu Jinapor spoke. Abu Jinapor has been consistent in sharing the evidence that point to the contrary on at least 3 of the major issues you raise about land grab. The filling station in Wa, the Bulgarian embassy, and then the Parks and Gardens.
And you may add the judges' bungalows as well.
Yes. From the evidence he's continued to churn out to us, it doesn't appear there's any wrongdoing in here.
Well, thank you very much. Let me, first of all, state that I come to this discussion and these matters with utmost good faith, with patriotic intentions, having the country at heart, and also thinking about our very existence. Because some of these lands we are talking about, parks and gardens lands, forests, Ramsaya sites, and all of that, if the destruction continues, the wanton dissipation continues, we face an existential threat. We will just be on a suicidal mission, and that will be the end of us. Now, we are talking about public lands, which belong to all of us. It is important that that premise is understood. Under Article 2571 of the Constitution of Ghana, it provides, all public lands in Ghana shall be vested in the President on behalf of and in trust for the people of Ghana. So these are our lands we are talking about. And so all of us must be interested in this discussion as citizens. Now, the malice, which has been properly captured as state capture, the nomenclature state capture, let nobody pretend that I am crying wolf when there is no basis. We have only recently come out of a national campaign to protect our state hotels. The SNIT hotels will have been captured by an individual, their Greek minister. But for my vigilance, conducting my parliamentary oversight, and rallying the country to protect those hotels. We have seen people die, public officials die, and in their will, we have seen forests, we have seen Ramsar sites. We have seen the institution of architects issue statements that suddenly they are not getting contracts any longer. And it's all the architectural contracts is going to one person, David Ajayi and Associates. I have the statement they issued here. Architects chide government over starving them, gives over 12 contracts to Sir David Ajayi. So state capture manifests under various forms, under various guises, where a few people, what belongs to all of us, they arrogate it to themselves. So this is an important national discussion, which we must really have, because it is about our country. Don't forget something, that the president himself, not too long ago, told this country that he missed out twice on the deadline for his Agenda 111. During COVID, he promised this country that within a year, radical hospital expansion program. After missing his deadlines on 2 occasions, he came back to tell us that the main reason was because they couldn't find land. If our public lands were not being sold like confetti, the president himself would not have missed his deadlines, and he will not still, as we speak, be struggling with land for Agenda 111. And I have consistently asked that why is it that our forebears procured land, acquired land, preserved them, had land banks for development, for factories. Nobody builds factories in the skies. Nobody will carry out massive industrialization, hospitals, schools, and all of that if you don't have land. So this is a very, very important discussion, and the attempt to engage in cheap political point scoring and wanting to equalize really irks me. And that's what the lands minister has been doing. Now, let me drill down to the evidence. I'll begin with the Bulgarian embassy demolition.
Right. Because we have gone over this before,
Yes.
I'd like you to go to the jugular about them.
Yes.
You insist that where we have gotten to, it's becoming a government liability.
Yes.
He insists that this was a private individual's, business, but because it involved an embassy, they had to come in. Where is he wrong?
He is totally wrong, because the dishonesty. You see, I now understand why the minister did everything to prevent us from getting the sole inquiry's report, Justice Oforiate's report. I filed an ITR request. My lawyers wrote to him. He refused to submit that report. And I keep saying that, look, public officials, we spend taxpayer funds to set up these commissions of inquiry. Those reports must be made public. Something, it had to take my ingenuity to intercept the 160-page report, a copy of which I have here. When you read this report, the findings and the recommendations do not support what the lands minister is saying, that purely a private affair. It's not true. Indeed, this report, the Lands Commission has been indicted. If you look at page 122, It has been observed that if the officers who worked on the judgment for cancellation had been diligent in executing their mandate, they would have noticed that the order for cancellation was against Mr. Anson's interests and not the Bulgarians' interests, which is the deed of sublease. It's stated here. Another paragraph, Bulgaria's land title certificate number GA6454 was eventually cancelled. We find that this was fraudulently done. The sole inquirer indicts the Lands Commission when you read this report. And the sole inquirer also says at page 123 that Mr. Jojo Hagan, without the necessary notices to the occupiers, forcibly evicted them, that's the Bulgarians, and caused the demolition of the property without following due process. The demolition was done on 30th March 2017. When the minister says that these are decade-old matters that we are rehashing, it's not true. The appeals court at the time had held that the Bulgarian embassy's premises under the Vienna Convention is the principle of inviolability should be respected. They defied all of that when you read this report. Then paragraph 6.1
doesn't change the facts.
No, please, I'm coming there.
Okay.
I'm coming there. Paragraph 6.16. The minister wants to create the impression that, politicians are not involved and that this was, don't bring in state capture. They don't bring people associated to the president here. Read paragraph 6.16. It says, after the demolition, Mr. Jojo Hagan went ahead and assigned the land for the unexpired residue of Leighton's lease to Dr. Yao Eduampuma on 11 December 2018. Dr. Yao Eduampuma went into possession and prepared the land for development. It was in the course of the development that his workers were asked to stop work and subsequently arrested by the property fraud unit. The question, therefore, is who is Dr. Yao Eduampuma? The one who stood to benefit, who was at the center of this whole thing. Is he not the president's appointee at the National Development Planning Commission? He is a politically exposed person.
And he's acquiring a property from an individual.
Who has engaged, conspired with officials at the last commission. The Justice Oforiatta has discovered that they engaged in fraudulent conduct. They were not diligent.
How is that blamable on the government or the ministry?
First of all, the government ought to have protected that enclave, the principle of inviolability. They didn't. The same thing happened with the Nigerians, you remember. And you see, these matters, under international law, is actually a declaration of war. It's an aggressive conduct. Then don't forget that the sole inquirer has revealed the shenanigans that took place between these actors. And as we speak, government has refused to apprehend Jojo Hagan. I filed an urgent question in Parliament. The Attorney General is telling us that they still can't find Jojo Hagan to exert sanctions. Now, as we speak, the Bulgarians are saying that if you can't find Jojo Hagan, then you may have to pay as government.
Why should it be government's business? They took land from an individual, and issues have come up between two individuals, an owner who gave to another individual, and
don't forget the role of the Lands Commission.
Who then disturbed the Bulgarian embassy.
But there's the role of the Lands Commission.
What do you mean by government can't find him? What is government's responsibility in finding him?
Government is in charge of internal security. And the recommendation, if you read the recommendation at page 124, it calls on government at page 125 rather. Okay. Calls on government that Mr. Jojo Hagan should be sanctioned for not following due process in the eviction of the alleged trespassers and the demolition of the Bulgarian embassy building, and should be made to compensate the Bulgarian embassy.
Right. So what do you find here? Is it a civil process or a criminal process?
So when you read these recommendations, it calls on government. It says, for example, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, in collaboration with the Lands Commission, should have a clearly spelled out processes for the acquisition of landed properties and their registration by all diplomatic missions based in Ghana. There is the need for the Lands Commission to consolidate its records to avoid the needless confusion caused by the
the recommendation, when a sole commissioner makes an inquiry, about a property belonging to a private person and then says government should sanction that private person, how do you actually effect it? Because you see, like, is in public service and has done something wrong and he's gone through a disciplinary process. How do you sanction me? Government cannot come to me that they are going to sanction me because I gave my land to somebody and then something happened to the property and a sole inquirer goes into it and says, sanction something. How do you sanction me?
In this case, once the sole inquirer discovered that this private person was working in cahoots with elements at the Lands Commission, his collaborators, who engage in this fraudulent conduct, the government should be taking steps. People at the Lands Commission should be held responsible.
Right, so that would be separate.
Yes.
And you and I know that at the Lands Commission, these things happen. People who have influence, they do all sorts of things at the Lands Commission.
Is that justified? The fact that it's been happening, should we justify it?
No, my question is, how is that interpreted as state capture?
Because you have a politically exposed person working with this Jojo Hagan guy, having a clear interest in that property. And indeed, after the demolition, took possession and started building high-rise buildings. We had to storm there with the Foreign Affairs Committee to insist that they stop work. And we pushed that this inquiry be set up. I mean, you see how, and this is always how it goes.
Okay.
Where politically exposed persons are behind the veil and pulling the strings, and they stand to benefit. Okay. Because in this case, it's President Akufo-Addo's appointee at the NDPC who is the beneficiary of all of these things that have happened.
All right. Now, to the next issue about
Parks and Gardens.
Parks and Gardens.
Yes, Parks and Gardens. Let me start with WA. Again, let me state for the record that this Parks and Gardens land, it is not true that the sale happened long ago, decades ago, and there's some repackaging. Indeed, the Honorable Minister himself says that they sold the land in 2019 under very, very dubious circumstances. Very dubious circumstances. Look, I have documents here from Parks and Gardens, drawing attention, petitioning the Lands Commission, all the way to the regional minister, trying to intervene in March this year. The Lands Commission finally told the regional minister to back off. Now, what is so strange about this matter is that you have the Minister for Local Government. I filed an urgent question in Parliament demanding answers to what has happened to the Parks and Gardens land. And this is what the local government minister told us, the Honorable Ejime Sakosa. I'm reading from column 22 of the Hansard of 4th July 2024. Quote, I did indicate earlier that the land in contention is covered by a certificate of allocation dated 27th November 1975 to the state. On the basis of this, we reject the claim by the Regional Lands Commission. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, we are not aware as a ministry of any decision by the state to relinquish its interest in the land. If that were to be the case, it should have been before this House. On the basis of that, we still believe that the land still holds as a property of government, the Department of Parks and Gardens for that matter, and we intend to reclaim it for the state. This is the local government minister telling us that they have not relinquished their interest. So far as they are concerned, this is still land under their control. And yet the lands minister is saying that they have sold it, they rezoned it. They said that criminals were taking over the Parks and Gardens land. When you read his statement, if the Republic of Ghana cannot protect its parks and gardens, its green spaces, and because you claim that criminals are going there,
so again,
you sell it. And then let me
wait on the WA Parks and Gardens.
Okay, just 5 seconds. Now that sale and that rezoning is illegal under the Land Use and Spatial Planning Act 2016, Act 925, because under Section 93, they should have come to Parliament.
The question I was going to ask was that November 1973, that is the acquisition of this land by the state. Then on July 19, 2019, one Seydu Muhammad Karim applied for a portion of the land, 0.44 acres, and the place was undeveloped, and he got that portion of the land. Now, why should the government take any blame about state capture around that subject matter?
Thank you for the question. Under Section 93 of the Land Use and Spatial Planning Act 2016, Act 925, says that without limiting subsection 3, the change of use or rezoning of a public space shall be subjected to approval by Parliament. This was not done. This was not done. And I have letters here. Look, the Upper West people, they fought. The chair of RECSEC, the regional minister, the Parks and Gardens people, 1st October 2021, they wrote this petition to the regional lands officer, request for your intervention on an ongoing encroachment of our lands, parks and gardens. We write to report to you an ongoing encroachment exercise on our main nursery land, gardens, along the Kambali Road by an unknown developer. As a custodian of government lands, we'll be very grateful if you could intervene on the matter.
So there was
another petition. 19th November.
So there was a land for parks and gardens use.
Yes.
And then we are told that the place was undeveloped for a very long time. And then an individual wants a part of it. The individual gets a part of it for the purposes of a filling station. And we are told now that filling station is leading to the place being put to productive use. Where is the state capture in the question? That's what I want to know. Whether or not the rezoning policy for the place has changed from parks and gardens to that portion for the purposes of a filling station. Where is the state capture in it?
Clear state capture. A parks and gardens land that will benefit all of us. When you talk to the parks and gardens, when you read these letters, they disagree, including the local government minister's presentation in Parliament. They say that the place was being used as a parks and gardens land to help with our horticulture development, to help with greening our country. They had seedlings and all of that. Now, when a land that will benefit all of us, a green space that will help the quality of life for all of us, and then you go and hive off one for a crony, that is state capture.
How do you know that Karim
I know
is
that,
politically exposed?
I know that for a fact. And if you look at what they say, why didn't they follow due process? That is, look, if you look at the ingredients of state capture, they will not follow due process. They will deny what is good for all of us.
So very, very quick things. We'll get to some of the direct things you are mentioning. You have gone to the WA one, but the one at the main one is Cantonment 1.
Yes.
Where they point to the fact that this was under Elvis Free Ankara, correct? And there was a purpose for it, that they were in dire need of office infrastructure and other working tools, and they needed to sell off 2 acres of the land. And Elvis, gave approval for this to be done. So where's the state capture in it? I have asked a question, more important question about what they said they wanted to use the proceeds for. They wanted to use it to build an edifice or do something. We don't see anything there.
Yes. Now, what is emerging from my continuous oversight is that there was really no payment before the NDC left office. And I challenge anybody to produce evidence that these private people had paid anybody. In other words, they did not conclude those discussions that were ongoing. That is the information I have.
Okay.
Now, I have said in this campaign that I will not hold brief for anybody or defend anybody who has not conducted themselves in a way that is in the interest of the state, whether you belong to my party or not. I have not seen really any conclusive evidence that the parks and gardens land in cantonments were sold. Now, the information that came to my attention was a recent attempt by this developer called Danny Ike, who I'm told is the second person to have purchased the land after Warren Toomey claims to have had that land, even though the evidence is emerging that they did not finalize that transaction. Now, Danny Ike, a few weeks ago went to place containers on that Parks and Gardens land. And then I got the tip-off. I immediately raised alarm and then filed an urgent question in Parliament. Because Parks and Gardens is under the local government ministry, I asked the local government minister to come explain exactly what is happening. Because I am interested in making sure that we protect our green spaces, we protect state assets. And I don't care whose ox is God in this campaign. This is what the local government minister told Parliament. Quote, in the particular case of the Department of Parks and Gardens land in cantonments, the recent claimant of the portion of the land indicated that he acquired a title to the land in contention, but could not produce same after he took the matter to court. The court subsequently dismissed the case and requested the plaintiff to re-enter the case with the proper documentation. Mr. Speaker, our checks, however, revealed that the claimant did not have any valid documentation to the land. I wish to state that the land in question has a valid certificate of allocation dated 2nd October 1952 to the Department of Parks and Gardens. Mr. Speaker, the Land Use and Spatial Planning Authority had in 2022 cautioned the general public to stay away from the use of the land for any private development purposes. Pursuant to the Land Use and Spatial Planning Act 2016 and its regulations, as well as the Local Governance Act, the usage of green belts, gardens and parks cannot be altered except through Parliament. In this regard, the ministry is working closely with LUSPA to ensure that all the developers and citizens adhere to the planning and development permitting processes under purview. This is what the local government minister told Parliament. Now you have the lands minister telling us something entirely different, that is being sold. And it was sold by the Free Ankara or under the NDC government. Who cares?
So my question again, what's the state capture in there?
Clear state capture. Parks and Gardens, we should help all of us. Faceless elements.
So you are indicting the NDC government for doing this? Except that you are saying by the time you were leaving office, payment had not been made.
Had not been made.
So who do you blame? So who do you blame?
And under this government, a new buyer shows up. So NDC was dealing with Warren Toomey. Now, under this government is Danny Ike. I don't know how the transition was done and who Danny Ike dealt with.
Okay.
We are still investigating. But it's clear that the attempt to take over is happening now under this government.
Okay.
It is now that these two containers were sent there. And I have had cause to commend the local government minister.
Yes.
After my question in Parliament, the next day, he moved there, got security personnel to move out the containers, destroy the containers.
Okay.
So there are a few elements in this government who are acting on this, who are on the side of the people and acting patriotically.
Because of time, because of time, you do this for me. The Dubois Center.
Yes.
I just need like a minute around it.
Yes.
You concede that you got it wrong there.
There's totally nothing to concede about. I have here the transfer agreement. I'll give you a copy. The transfer agreement, which was signed on the 22nd of September 2023 by Shelley Ayoko Boche, page 44. Foreign Minister Godfrey Yeboah-Dami, the Attorney General. A 50-year transfer to a private foundation to take over the place, to take total control. Transfer agreement is here. Republic of Ghana, agreement between government of Ghana.
So remember you started by saying state capture is important and we shouldn't leave that nomenclature.
Exactly.
My question is, how do you say how does this make a state capture of the Dubois Center?
The Dubois Center is helping all of us. The proceeds come to Ghana, under very opaque circumstances. They don't even come to Parliament. Then this is transferred to some private entities. And if you read the terms here, very unconscionable. They have total control.
Which foundation is this?
It was 2 years ago incorporated, and I'll come. Jafet Ayiku is supposed to be the chief promoter, and they signed this together with the foreign minister and the local government, and they take total control.
Name the foundation. What's the name of the foundation?
The foundation, W.E.B. Du Bois Museum Foundation.
So what does that tell you?
You see?
What does that tell you that there's any state capture in this? Is the W.B. Du Bois Foundation seeking to improve the facility for the purpose that it's supposed to be.
We shouldn't care
Museum Foundation.
So we shouldn't care about the terms? We shouldn't care about the period?
No, questioning the terms and the period, how does that translate to state capture?
Because the terms are unconscionable. They take over 2 years. You know, they control the place. They have controlling rights.
So once again,
And they control the
which
board.
politician is lurking in there and seeking to take the state property to themselves so that you can say state capture?
You want full disclosure.
But that's why you are doing this.
Of course, that's why I'm doing this.
Okay, we're taking a break here. We're taking a break here. When we return, the representative of the minister of the ministry will shed some light on these questions with us. But do you find that Okudzeto is doing something that is leading you to make some concessions? The minister's statement that he gave on the 14th of August at page 8, he said that the Akufo-Addo-Bawumia government has been meticulous in protecting public lands in the public interest. On the 17th of August 2021, with the approval of the President of the Republic, a policy directive was issued to the Lands Commission, pursuant to Article 25A2 of the National Constitution, to, quote, refer all transactions relating to the grant of any interest in public land to the office of the Minister for prior approval. This was to ensure that the President of the Republic, in whom these lands are vested, discharges his constitutional duty in an informed manner. The directive further stated that any deed executed without the approval of the President through the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources will be deemed void, as same would have been done without authority of the President in whom the lands are vested. We didn't know about all of this. Now you are telling us that these are the steps you are taking to seek to protect public lands. We'll be right back. Welcome back. And apologies because obviously we cannot do the matter about the security recruitment that has come up. The NDC accusing the NPP of recruiting foot soldiers into the process and actually seeking to bribe, quote unquote, bribe the NDC MPs by asking them to also bring some persons to be giving recruitment or jobs. And now Henry Korte admitting that yes, they did ask them to do something like that, but it was not intended for bribe. The question some of my panelists are already asking, including Nanaya, is what is new really? Don't we know about these things already? So what's going on? But the concern has been that 2 Dankwa Institute guys have been appointed to head or sensitive position in national security. And around the same time, you have Brian Champong making all these statements about they will win at all costs and so on. And Brian Champong is linked to the Ayawaso West Wagon situation. So there's some concern ahead of the elections. We certainly will take care of it next time. The show is brought to you by the kindest sponsorship of Bank of Africa, Strong as a group and close partner, MTN, everywhere you go. Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for over 33 years. My Way Insurance, simply dial *165# on MTN to join My Way today. Syntex Tanks, it's strong and it's tough. Flamingo Paint, simply superior. And my outfits, as always, is by Konati Clothing. They are at Adenta Shopping Center, Adenta Down. You can contact them on 0244 676732. 0244 676732. Konati Clothing. What you wear counts. As always, tomorrow join me at 2 p.m. on The Law, my weekly legal clinic. the RTI law has been in action for how many years now? It was passed in 2019. So we're going to do some auditing, find out how far, so far, with the Executive Secretary, Yao Sapong Boateng. So, Cletus, tell us, the minister has issued statements upon statements, and then he has felt the need to also do a whole broadcast and to repeat the denials that he has made over a period of time. What is Okudzeto saying that is not factual?
Thank you very much, Samson. And thank you for the opportunity to just highlight a couple of things. I will restrain myself strictly to responding to the facts, and facts as they relate to the management of lands by the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources and by the Lands Commission. Now, before the break, you made a point which I want to start from that angle, and that is the fact that the expose or so-called expose by the honorable member has led to some policy directive. That is not correct. These policy directives started as far back as 2021. In fact, it started immediately when this minister came into office. Now, if you read Article 2582 of the Constitution, it says the minister responsible for lands and natural resources may, with the approval of the president. So first of all, we needed the approval of the president before we could issue these policy directives to the Lands Commission. And so the process started immediately he came to office, wrote to the office of the president, made some presentations to the office of the president before the approval was given. And the first letter that was written was in 2021, August 17th. That was long before these matters came up. And so it is not as if it is what he is doing that has led to some of these policies. These policies had always been in place and it's been implemented all along. Now, to the specific matters about the Bulgarian embassy. And Senior, you and I, you know that when you have a document, you have to read the document in full to understand. The honorable member makes a lot of allegations about fraudulent. If you read the entirety of the report, which he has, and today I'm happy he said that when he wrote, we didn't give him. The last time he was here, he said we didn't respond to his letter. And in fact, I actually brought a copy of our response to his lawyers, which just.
But you didn't give. I said.
But we didn't give. No, the last time we said we didn't respond to your letter. That was what you said on Newsfile the last time, which we refuted that we responded, except that we gave you reasons why we couldn't give you the report. So that's it.
What reason was that?
It was an unhelpful response. I said that I want the report, publish the report.
What was the reason?
Interest, and you refused to.
The reason we gave him was the fact that the report, there were two reasons. First of all, it's a matter bordering on diplomatic mission. So it borders on Ghana's international relations. That is number one. And under the RTI law, such matters are exempt from the RTI, from disclosure. And number two, the report contains, in fact, the sole inquirer noted that there are 3 cases pending in court. And some of the witnesses, so-called witnesses in this case, were interviewed, and the cases are still pending. And so to avoid prejudice, we decided to hold on to the report because, in fact, the executive summary of the report, which was published, contains all the findings of the sole inquirer. If you read the report, about 100 pages of it is actually evidence of witnesses. And it is that evidence of the witnesses which we said because of the matters pending in court.
Okay, so let's get back.
So back to the main issue.
But because I'm a crusader for the RTI,
yeah.
I am always uncomfortable when people say there is an exemption.
Yeah.
When the exemption is not blankets.
Very well.
If the public interest outweighs
that is correct.
The danger you suspect, the law says you have to disclose it, even if it is exempt.
That is correct.
All right, so
let me just add that, in fact, in our response to him, we told him that because of these reasons and because of the point you have raised, we had written to the AG for advice on it as to whether we could go ahead to release. Okay. That is in the response we gave to him.
You are still waiting for the AG's reply. Let's go on.
Now the report. Now on the report. Yeah. The sole inquirer's findings of fraudulent was against Mr. Jojo Hagan, not against the Lands Commission.
Jojo Hagan being the one who inherited the land from Is it
Mr. Lighton.
his father or whoever it was?
Mr. Lighton.
Right.
If you read paragraph 6.13, it said it was found out that Mr. Lighton had acted fraudulently by getting the land registration division of the Lands Commission to cancel the Bulgarian embassy's interest in the land. So the findings of fraud was not against the Lands Commission, and he himself read a paragraph which said that the Lands Commission was not diligent. That was the sole inquiry's way. Yes. That the Lands Commission was not diligent. But you see, let me just use that to also explain a little bit. When you go to court and you get a judgment, like the Court of Appeal judgment that cancelled or that will set aside the High Court judgment, you need to plot it at Lands Commission for them to have it on their record. If you do not plot it, they won't have it. So the first High Court judgment, which was set aside by the High Court, was actually plotted in the Lands Commission's records. But the Court of Appeal decision, up to date, as we speak, is still not plotted. So the Lands Commission, when these documents were presented, had the High Court judgments there, and there was an order for them to cancel, which they complied with. And so the sole inquirer found that the High Court, the Lands Commission was not diligent, but he never said that they acted fraudulently.
Is government going to be liable?
No, the sole inquirer support is very clear on the last recommendation, which the honourable member read, and it says that Mr. Jojo Hegan should be sanctioned and made to compensate the Bulgarian embassy. So the person liable for the compensation is Mr. Jojo Hegan, not government.
What do you understand by he should be sanctioned? Sanctioned by who? What sort of sanction?
So the report included allegations of fraud against him. And so in the press release which we released after the report was published, we noted clearly that we had written to the AG to take up the issue of fraud. We can't prosecute fraud. It is within the remit of security agencies.
So there is crime.
Yeah.
That's been hinted at.
Exactly.
A criminal offense.
Exactly. And then we have written to the AG to take that up because that is out of our remit. We cannot.
And the whole government can't find this guy.
For 2 years.
Well, as to whether they have found him or not, as a city, I have no idea about that.
Okay.
In fact, if you read the report,
I'm asking that because, as we understand, the Bulgarians are saying that if you can't find a person, then you have to sort of liquidate the compensation to them. You must pay.
No, like we said in the last press release we released, there's actually a committee from Lands Commission, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which are dealing with these matters.
Okay.
They've settled on the compensation. They have what is left in the process for the payment.
And,
we are very
and
clear,
who's going to pay that?
From the report, it is very clear that Mr. Jojo Hegan is supposed to pay.
So you can't find him. So who is going to pay?
There has been no indication to us that Mr. Jojo Hegan is not going to pay this compensation.
But you can't find
so
him.
we are very clear in our mind.
Okay.
We are very clear in our
And I have the committee's report here.
Mr. Jojo Hegan is going to pay
5.3 million.
Yes, but when we responded to your press, we admitted the figure. It's not as if but what the point we were seeking to make was that it's not a liability of government. That was all the point we sought.
Yeah, but you must find Jojo Hegan.
Yeah, but I'm saying that the compensation has been settled on. The process for the payment is ongoing. There's a committee in place which is dealing specifically with that matter.
All right.
Now, so that is it. And in fact, and then he mentions one Dr. Edu Ampoma. If you read page 11 of the report, it says, with the emphatic admissions regarding the eviction of the so-called trespassers and the demolition of the premises by Mr. Jojo Hegan, the dispute as to who actually did so is finally settled. On the evidence available, the admissions exonerate the developer, Dr. Edu Ampoma, of any blame. And so there's nothing that, as we sit here, we can actually do against Dr. Edu Ampoma, because the report himself is referring to exonerates him and says that Mr. Jojo Hegan should be sanctioned, which is what the process we are following to deal with that.
But he refers to Dr. Edu Ampoma,
yes, because
he's a politically exposed person.
I don't know him.
And he benefits from this.
I don't know him.
He came
but from the report, the demolition was done. In fact, it was subsequent to the demolition that he acquired the property. And that is why the sole inquiry actually exonerates him. I don't know him. I don't know.
He acquired it after the demolition.
After the demolition, that is true.
So it's not that he was lurking around and he's the one who instigated the demolition.
The sole inquiry says that it was after the demolition that the Jojo Hegan assigned the residue of his interest to Dr.
All right.
Ampoma.
Okay.
Now, the issue, I see that you are looking at the time.
Yes.
There are a couple of other issues he raised, which I want to respond to briefly. The issue about the Parks and Gardens Land Act. The Lands Commission doesn't do rezoning. That is solely in the remit of the LUSPA, which is under the local government.
Yeah.
And so the processes that they go through to rezone, Lands Commission is not involved. When they have rezoned the land, then based on that, then the land commission can make some allocations for certain developments. And so as to whether the LUSPA complied with the law for rezoning or they didn't comply with the law, that is actually out of our remit. But we have been informed, the Lands Commission was informed by the regional LUSPA in Upper West Region that this particular area has been rezoned and specifically gave approval for the construction of a filling station. And it was based on this that the Lands Commission went ahead to give the lease to...
But you'll understand, you understand, Okujeto, somewhat that, yes, this is paperwork, but we have known situations where the zoning policy for a particular area overnight changes because one politically exposed person wants to have access to a particular portion or has gotten a portion but cannot use it for the purpose for which he has gotten it. And suddenly there's a rezoning.
Senior,
in addition to that, they didn't comply with the law. They didn't come to parliament.
Like I indicated from the beginning, I am restricting myself to the facts.
I understand you.
Which are within the remit of the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources and the Lands Commission. I can't go into the intendment of other people and all those stuff. But what I'm saying is,
don't you have a duty? Don't you have a duty to check? If LUSPA tells you that we have rezoned, don't you have a duty to check if they have actually rezoned and if they followed the process?
Senior, you are now aware that official acts are presumed to have been properly done. Unless you have contrary evidence, when LUSPA writes to us that they have rezoned this area, why should we go and question LUSPA?
Do you have the LUSPA letter?
Yes, I have the LUSPA letter. I have the LUSPA letter here. I have the LUSPA letter. I have the yeah, because you see, I don't question your intention.
How about the Dubois Center?
I don't know. I was asking for him to read the title of the document he's reading. I'm not privy to.
Okay.
The Lands Commission is the repository of lands. The AG doesn't sign land transfer of deeds. The foreign minister doesn't sign transfer of deeds. When you are given a lease of a public land, it says the President of the Republic of Ghana, acting by the chairman of the Lands Commission or an official of the Lands Commission. The Lands Commission says they do not even have an application. They do not even have an application for a transfer of that particular land. As we speak, that document you are referring to, it can be a deed of transfer of the land. It can't be.
So,
if it is an arrangement between some parties,
as far as your ministry is concerned,
that land is still intact.
There's no issue of state capture in any of the matters he has raised.
Not at all. In fact, and in fact, that is the point that we sought to make. And strictly restricting ourselves to the issues of the lands that he raised. For example, the issue about the cantonments passing guidelines. I have the deed of conveyance here, dated 2016, and he says that his checks indicate that they were not paid. That can't be true.
And the person has changed.
No, yes. Before you give a land, let me address that and I'll address your point. Before you are given a public land, they give an allocation. The allocation contains conditions about how much you should pay and everything. Until you pay that, Lands Commission will never execute a deed for you. Until you make that payment, Lands Commission will never execute a deed for you.
That's true.
And so it can be true that they have issued a deed when it has not been paid. Payment was made, and it was based on that payment that the deed was issued.
So those who are saying that to him are misleading.
They're obviously misleading.
How come in 2021?
Yeah.
The Ministry for Local Government and Rural Development went to that same location to build a 5-story.
So let me explain this.
A 5-story building.
Okay, very quickly. Let me explain that.
This letter of
I gave you.
Let me explain that. Yes, go ahead and explain. Yeah.
The land at the Parks and Garden lands at cantonments is more than 2 acres. It is only 2 acres of this that was granted to this company, and so the other portions of the land, which are over 10 acres, is still there. The Minister of Local Government could have gone there to develop the other part of the land, not necessarily this particular land.
Okay.
So the fact that Minister wanted to go and build something there is not as if it was on that specific land.
Are you aware?
Let me respond to
no, hold on. Sammy, hold on. Sammy, hold on. And quickly do in 2 minutes for me. I need Nanaya and Dr. Tio Champo at least to have a minute's commentary.
Yeah. But that would be unfair something.
Yes, quick.
I also have some responses to that.
Yes, I understand you can do a minute. Conclude.
Yes. So the point and the last portion the last matter he mentioned is the issue about the, what do you call it? The judges' bungalows. That I also have the date here. Before that, the issue about Ike something which he mentioned.
Yeah, Danny Ike.
Yes, Danny Ike, I have here an application by the Wuntrim people dated 6 January 2020. Sorry, 6 January 2017. 6 January 2017, before this government came to power. 6 January.
And it was granted that day.
No, they applied for consent to transfer this land to this Danny Ike people. And the Lands Commission granted the consent.
Yeah, so he raised the issue of the transfer,
so
and it was not done within this government. That's the point you are making.
Exactly.
In January,
Exactly.
on the 6th of January, before the 7th of January.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the issue about the judges' bungalows. I mean, that matter we've tried to restrain ourselves from going into detail because it's a matter
pending in
court.
court.
And in fact, the CJ himself have taken interest to try and resolve the matter. But the fact remains that the land was granted in 2015.
Okay.
When
he's making a demand for the minister to publish, he's making a demand for the minister to publish the list of the
we've been making this demand.
allocations. Yes. When is he going to do that?
We were before his committee, the assurance committee, just a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
And in fact, this same matter came up, and we've assured him that it is, you see,
you've been assuring us since 10 February.
No. When are you going to do it? When are you going to do it?
So the assurance the minister gave to the committee, and I believe is the same thing, which I can repeat here, is the fact that the team at Lands Commission is putting the thing together.
Right.
They say because it is manual, it is very difficult, and so.
And you have decided that you are going as far back as 1993. Thank you very much. Nanea, please, you have to forgive us. You have to forgive us. What can you say about this back and forth?
I don't understand this back and forth. The point is that state capture is state capture, whether whoever has done it. You see, the biggest state capture is the National Cathedral lands. The president made the private promise to God, and he's used state lands trying to build a National Cathedral. That is state capture. You see, when the minister was speaking, he said that with the lands, you have gifts, compulsory acquisition, chiefs, stools, skins, and all that. But compulsory acquisition and gifts, you don't give them out because you acquire them for some developmental process. I'll give an example of freeze.
Okay, I'm very sorry. I apologize to you most profusely, and we will have you back. I'm very sorry. And of course, there is a bipartisan support for Okudjeto's bill to prohibit politically exposed persons from acquiring public lands. My guests have been Cletus Alenga, who is Legal Counsel, Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. Dr. Theo Champong, apologies to you once again on this subject. Economist and political risk analyst. Nanaya Achampim Jantua is former General Secretary of the Convention People's Party. And Samuel Okudjeto Ablakwa, son of man, MP for North Tongue and Chairman, Assurance Committee of Parliament and Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament. I'm Samson Ladia Yanini. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.